Hello, Jim 12's here again. Today is the 23rd of April 2026 and today I'm going to present a reflection on health. Now health is chapter 11 of my book While We Were Sleeping, available on Amazon. I'd love you to go and have a look. Now in this video I would love you to go down the bottom and press a like if you like it, obviously, and add questions, comment. I would love a discussion. That would be fantastic. So let's get going. A reflection on health. Now health is obviously very important to every one of us, and I guess we all think about it quite a lot. Anyway, let me start off with discussing the scientific method. Now, as a teacher, I used to teach the scientific method to my high school students, and I find it a beautiful method. Let me just take you through the steps of the scientific method and remind you what it involves. Firstly, there's an observation of something, or you find you have a question about something. Okay. Then, stage 2, you do some research. You try and discover everything that has been written or thought about that question. Thirdly, you formulate a hypothesis. In other words, it's your best guess as to the reason for whatever it is you're observing. Then you set up a test experiment to see if your hypothesis is true or not. And then you analyze the data, and finally you come to conclusions. But another scientist is going to come along, maybe in the same day, same year, or whatever, in your lifetime certainly, and question your conclusions and say, well, what if I come up with another hypothesis? And what if my hypothesis is proven better than yours? So the conclusion is science is never settled. If you think about the theory of evolution, which is taught in schools as if it were a fact, like gravity, but it's still a theory, and I would challenge anybody to try and prove evolution. Therefore, it's still a theory to be tested. That can be applied to many things. Anyway, today I would like to introduce you to my poster. Forgive my drawing, but I'll try and explain. In this second point of my video today, I want to talk about germ theory versus terrain theory. And some of you may not have come across those terms, but let me introduce them and make some comments about them. Now, germ theory was proposed, theorized by Louis Pasteur, and terrain theory was proposed, theorized by A.Bechamp, both French of all things, and both in the 1850s. And there hasn't been a third option proposed since, to my knowledge, but if you know one, please put a comment down the bottom and a link, because I'm not aware that there's a third option. At the moment it's just the two. So on the left, let's have a look at the germ theory and what's the core of the germ theory. The core of the germ theory is that we as human beings are surrounded by, how should I say, germs that are out to get us. So let's make sure that our sanitation is as good as it can be, and even improve it if we've let it slip. Let's make sure our water is clean and filtered. The air is filtered. We have a balanced diet. We have all the appropriate available vaccines. we have all the supplements that Chemist Warehouse can give us. We are wearing PPE, personal protective equipment, and we're making sure that we keep isolated from anybody else in case they've got a disease. And this is basically mainstream medicine, where they have really sophisticated drugs targeting the symptom and therefore in their mind giving us a cure. And maybe they do, but they're not targeting the cause. And contagious disease is what the germ theory is all about. Let's come over onto the right hand side to terrain theory. Now, terrain theory is all about strengthening the natural immunity within our body. That's why I drew a fleshed out person, if you like, because the emphasis is on us rather than the environment. Terrain theory, the terrain of our body, if you like. Let's strengthen the natural immunity of our body. And to do that, let's have a balance between our spirit, our mind, and our body. Not just focusing on the body, but making sure that we've got the other two legs of the stool in balance as well. Basically, terrain theory would fit with the term alternative medicine. This is one of the keys of the terrain theory, that disease comes from within because there's an internal imbalance and the body is fixing it, working on itself. The terrain theory would really emphasize a balanced diet, just like germ theory, ever so important. But I'll leave you with this thought. Terrain theory is free. There is no demand for us to part with dollar. Whereas germ theory, mainstream medicine, there's a dollar sign everywhere. Therapeutic drugs administration, all manner of layers of control of the dollar. How long you can spend with your GP. It's very, very dollar intensive. So that's my take if you want to take a still of that picture. Anyway, I propose to you that we in the West have taken on board germ theory as if terrain theory was a joke. And basically I would argue that the vast majority of folk on the planet, in the Western world particularly, would see germ theory as, well, it's obviously true. Whereas they're not looking at terrain theory and the potential that that might have to explain health or ill health. So, I'll leave those two with you. Number 3, I would like to think that a doctor who's been very well trained, gone through years and years of training, I would like to think they could look across at me in their consulting room and have a discussion with me as to what is the best treatment for me, based on all the variables that it's really impossible to measure. A blood test, yeah, okay, that does something, but it doesn't take into consideration a whole swag of other factors. But government regulation is forcing doctors to treat us all as if one size fits all, and you go through the ticker box list. If you've got that, you then go to that, you then get to that, and arguably the doctor can not even look at you or talk to you, but go through his checklist and work out what drug he needs to prescribe for you, or what treatment, or what amputation he needs to prescribe for you. I find that very sad, that doctors, medicine mainstream media, not mainstream media, mainstream medicine have become corporatized and managed by the government. I'd like to finish this reflection with the term intermittent fasting. Now, a video of 10 minutes or so can't possibly cover health. It really can't. So I'm just skating across the surface and landing on a few interesting peaks, if you like. Intermittent fasting. Now, you may have tried that. I've seen various diets that advocate it. And at the root of it, I find there's something very interesting, namely autophagy. Now, a definition of autophagy is the body's natural cellular recycling system. In other words, as you know, I'm sure, we shed cells all the time. They're falling off us, they're washing out of us. We're constantly recycling. But if you have a period of intermittent fasting, you are triggering the body to do some self-eating. It sounds crude, but basically it is removing unnecessary or damaged cells from your system, obviously via the bloodstream, etc. And exercise can also trigger autophagy. So to me, that's a very good way of ensuring my internal health by periodically giving myself a cleanse. It doesn't cost me anything, and arguably nobody really needs to know that you're doing it. But you're triggering your own self-cleaning system, if you like. Let's do a spring clean, and off we go. I've heard it also said that skipping breakfast could be a really good way of triggering autophagy. Anyway, I'll leave you with those thoughts. Germ theory or terrain theory. Please don't throw out the terrain because you're brainwashed, unintentionally, by germ theory. Anyway, till next time, have a very good day. Bye for now.